So so I went and bought one of these capes. Now I like the ones with the black with a like slight blue sheen. So if you've got any of those sitting in your fly box, I'd highly recommend, in your tying box, I'd highly recommend you tie yourself some Matukas. So it was one of the first flies I learned, so I'm just going to tie it again tonight. Very simple fly to tie. So I use we can use a B830 is the standard hook size that we use. I'm going to use a streamer type fly, a Hannock, which is a barbless tonight. I'm trying to use barbless. I haven't been very successful with those so far, but I will continue to use them.
As I said on Sunday, mate, it's only a mental thing.
Absolutely. And we just wind on the thread to the back. Very simple. Like I said, very simple. So you tie on silver wire. Now what I tend to do with the wire is I take it a bit longer and I wind through about halfway through, and then I fold the wire back on itself. And that way it's not going to pull out. That up a bit.
Oops.
When you're tying with materials, and it's one thing that David taught me, is that never skimp on when you're tying materials in that you have to either palm or wind through, because the worst thing that can happen is you get to the very end and you've only got a small amount. So I tend to have long pieces that I put through, and that way I'm not struggling at the very end to tie it off. Now with a red Matuka, or with any Matuka, you can use any form of body material. So with a red one, so I'm going to use wool, because that was the very first fly I tied was with a red wool. But you know, you can use red chenille. I think Craig likes seal's fur. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So Craig will be using seal's fur. Now, depending on the body size that you want, you can either just wind it through once. I tend to create a slightly thicker body, so I actually tie mine through at the front and wind it through to the back. And then wind it forward again. That off. And then we take a couple of hackles from our hen. So you match the hackles to the length of the hook. So it's just a matter of measuring how long a tail you want. So these hackles are round. Well, these hen feathers, sorry, are round-ended feathers, and I actually like these because of the way that they move in the water. So I tend to, you can either strip off the end, or I like to leave the end on so I can hold it while I tie in the feather. Some people like to cut off the bottom of the feather to make it lie along nicely. I tend not to do that because you actually then end up with some fibres coming out the side, which I think adds to the fly anyway. So I don't bother cutting the base off, but certainly you can if you wanted a neater looking fly. It's not always that the neatness works, and you just do the standard pinch and tie off at the front. And I always pull the base bit back before I cut that off, and that just locks in the hackle, or in this case the feather. And then it's just a matter of palming the wire through the feather, which is a standard procedure. However, I always for anything I'm tying in wire, I always take a wrap of wire around first. In this case, I'll take a couple of wraps to build up the back slightly before I tie the feather in. And one of the reasons why you tie the wire off the back a couple of times is easier to then wrap through, but it also builds up a bit of a bulk at the back, which then tilts the fly up somewhat when you lock it in, which actually then stops it from tail wrapping, which I found.
Mm.
And then just wind that through. And the trick with this is to work out how far to go through to the front without actually and then lock it off and wind that off, and then you break or cut that wire off, figure 8 it, and then just tie that in and put a head on that. And that's basically your Matuka. That one's not standing really nicely, but that'll do. Now with a Matuka, you can tie that off now and put a cement head on it. Or if you want to add some more bulk, so that's a standard Matuka that you tie off. But if you want to add some more bulk to that, you can then put a hackle through the front of it. And what that will do is create some bulk in the front of the fly to push more water. So if you want to fish it fast or create some bulk through the water, if you tie in again a soft hackle, gives you a variation on the fly, and just a couple of turns through the front. The tackle might have been a bit long. And it gives you a nice hackle at the front that pushes more water. Also with a Matuka, if you wanted to add a bit of flash to a Matuka, you can as well. So you take a bit of flash. So again, a variant on the Matuka is if you want to add some further flash. So you can tie some flash through the front of it, and you tie it on at the front. Flash should be about as long as the tail in this case. And then tie it off at the back so that you've got it on both sides. And you can cut the back strand off to about the same length. and whip finish that. So basically, with a Matuka, if you want to have some variation and add some flash, tie your standard Matuka. You can add hackle at the front to give it more bulk, and add flash to it as you need to.